As we kick off the recording, do I need to shut my slider? Is the outside noise distracting? Okay, great. It's just distracting for me. This will be a practice and focus. It's beautiful here in Pacific Grove today. It's 69 degrees outside already, and it's only 9 a.m. And for those of you that know the area, 69 is like 78. So, um, anyhow, great to see so many faces on the call this morning. For those, I don't know that I've seen Irene on the call before. Welcome, Irene. Good morning, Stacy, Darius, Paula. Good to see you, Paula. And who else have we got? We've got Lori, Claire, Debbie Pelham is in the house. Hello. And Tammy and Kim representing, getting some steps in on that fully functional foot. All right. So this is the second week in June, third week in June. So we're on our first and third week cadence for the Builders Call. So happy to have so many faces on today. As I was thinking about the topic for the call and having a total mind blank, I went to bed last night. I'm like, well, maybe I'll wake up in the morning and it will come to me. And then it still wasn't happening. And I called Selena about 8 o'clock and I'm like, I need to do the promotion for the Builders Call. I have no idea what to talk about. And I'm like, oh, that's it. What to say when you don't know what to say. And why that came to me is because how often I am in conversations with people that run up against a potential roadblock in a conversation with someone in this context of, attraction and recruiting. And it's like, oh man, what could I have said that would have been more powerful, or positioned things in a different way, or maybe been more energetically neutral? There's all kinds of things that come up with that. So I thought that today we could craft an entire conversation, because I know we've got all levels of experience jumping on this call today. And as I think about one of the things that gets missed most often is the realization that skill sets are transferable. So I look at Lonnie Belcher and I go, oh, she is absolutely kicking butt and taking names in real estate uh, on the production side of things, and the same skill sets that are relationship building, communication, moving people forward, meeting them where they're at. Those skill sets are all transferable in the context of attraction and recruiting. And yet sometimes we feel like it's a totally different thing. And then we need a script or the words in our mouth to say the right thing at the right time. And so I wanted to kind of just backtrack a little bit before we jump into the specifics in this conversation, to think about everything comes from the mindset piece of it first and foremost, right? And for those of you, how many of you have done any work with Dr. Joe Dispenza, just by raise of hands? So Claire, Selena, Kim. Okay. So the one of the powerful things about the work that he does is it's in the area of neuroplasticity. And a belief, I want you to write this down. A belief is simply a thought that I choose to think over and over again. So if you want to change your beliefs, you pick a different thought and you think it over and over and over again, and you will mold and shape your beliefs to be something different. The other way that you can change a belief is by having an experience that's highly emotional, that in the moment creates a new track essentially in your brain. So for those of you that were at the retreat this weekend at my house and we talked about experiential training is really quite simply like, you can read books all day long, and over time and repetition and those things that we tell ourselves or say, someone actually asked for a good book on that. And there's a book the title of it is What to Say When You Talk to Yourself. The author is Shad Helmstetter. And I read that book back in 2005 when I was in a horrible relationship, laying on a pool chair in Maui for 2 weeks, which, is a conundrum in and of itself. It wasn't Rick, don't worry. And so that idea of what we say matters, and then tying that into how our minds work and how everyone that we're going to be dealing with in this context of attraction and recruiting, how their minds work as well, is when you understand the process of that, you can deal and interact with people on a different level. So when you have any kind of thought, it produces a chemical reaction in your body. So when you have a thought, it produces a chemical reaction in your body. That chemical reaction in your body is identified as an emotion. An emotion is a record of the past. that is stored in your body. So think about all the times you've been in conversations or not been in conversations with somebody. I interviewed Kim Renshaw on this call earlier in the month, and she was like, well, attraction recruiting was disgusting. Like, but why? Why didn't you like it? And it was because of the experience that she had had when someone was doing it to her and the experience she did not like. So she had a thought about that. She had a chemical reaction in her body stored as an emotion, which was a record of the past that she did not like. She didn't want to be that person. So why would she want to attract and recruit anyone? And this is how things get layered in our minds and bodies, and how they get layered in the minds and bodies of anybody that's going to be a prospect that you're going to be speaking to in that's with another company that you want to join you with ours and within our community. And so to give some thought to this is recognizing if I'm in a spot where I feel stuck personally, which is a choice and a perspective, or I'm not having the conversations and I'm not doing the work, their first place to look before we even have a conversation about anything is what is that silent dialogue that happens in your mind or is not happening in your mind that creates that chemical response that's triggering some kind of emotion that's creating a behavior called holding back, not engaging, not doing the work. And that is a record of some past experience. So it's really challenging. We talk about, the past is perfect. The future is not guaranteed. The present is, where it's at, right? Except for how hard is it to be present because we wake up doing the same thing we did yesterday. We're in the past. We go into that same feeling where we're resisting or, not executing. It's because of something in the past that's dictating current behavior. And so this mindset piece of understanding that before we ever get to what to say when you don't know what to say is understanding what's going on for each and every one of us, and that it's important to have an intentional reset before going into each day, each conversation, and each situation to get present for ourselves and then be able to, I don't want to say go to battle, but sometimes we do go to battle with other people who have no idea that that's what's going on for them and don't understand it. They're just thinking, feeling, behaving, acting, reacting, resisting in a certain way. Before we move any further, I know that was a big dump. So let's take any perspectives you might have on it, things that you heard for the first time, things that you're reconsidering, new awarenesses that you might have just had. Stacy.
I just want to jump in because I just hit record and I want to catch it again. Can you just go through the steps before? Because we've always heard that our thoughts lead to our feeling, that whole like circle. Can you just go through that just really quick?
Yes. So when we have a thought, it produces a chemical response in the body. Regardless of what the thought is, it produces a chemical response. That chemical response shows up as some kind of feeling or emotion, even if it's apathy, indifference, anger, resistance. Like those are different emotions, feelings, right? And then based on those feelings, our actions happen over time. When we act again and again and again, it becomes a set behavior. So let's use this in the example of attraction and recruiting. And I get up and I think to myself, recruiting and attraction is like herding cats because of how long it can take to move someone, right? It can take months, it could take years, right? So imagine I just have that thought that goes off in my mind. Immediately, there is a chemical reaction happening in my body that's creating an emotion of probably some frustration, uh, like questioning, do I really want to go out there and have conversations with people? Like, it's like everything would be just so great if we weren't people because, people can be challenging to deal with sometimes, right? And then that affects my behavior or how I'm like, am I going to procrastinate making those calls and having the conversations? Am I going to go into it going, well, this is like the 10th time I've talked to this person or reached out to this person. Maybe today will be different, but I doubt it. And now my energy is impacted by what I'm doing, actually physically doing. So the thought to the chemical reaction to the emotion, that's a stored memory of the past that then is going to, that's the moment of truth where we get to go, okay, I have an awareness around this. I get to choose the behavior that's going to be effective and change the way I'm thinking to what's going to be effective for the outcome that I want to create. Or I can go victim to this natural thing that's playing in my head and attempt to go out and execute anyway, only to not be the most effective and get the results that I want, knowing that everything is going to be generated from me, from my energy, from my perspective, and from how I'm going to go into any situation. Does that help, Stacy? I don't think I said it in the exact same way because it never comes out the same way twice. However, hopefully clear.
No, that's exactly what I was looking for. So thank you so much.
Okay, perfect. Anyone else before we keep going?
Can I add that I didn't realize why I thought it was gross until we did that exercise. And those conversations from the other people trying to recruit me were like 10 years ago. And I didn't realize it until we unpacked it.
And that's such a huge thing. So for everyone, I want to highlight that again for everybody that's listening. It was 10 years ago. She had the experience that created the thought that created the chemical reaction that got stored as an emotion in her body that 10 years later has her being resistant to something that's going to be very effective to create the kind of future that she wants to create for herself. It makes absolutely no sense, but this is how people are running around the world functioning. And it makes perfect sense when you understand the physiology of how the mind and body and emotions and everything works. Uh, Most people haven't taken time to get to know that. And so this is where it actually gives each and every one of us an edge when we understand that. Because when we understand it in ourselves, then we're in a position to work with and be with people in a different space and dig into those things because you're not afraid to go there because you know that underneath it, if there's any kind of resistance or there's any kind of anything that's keeping someone from moving forward, it's based on a way that they think and some chemical reaction that's happened in their body that's gotten stored as an emotion of that experience that they did not like, that they do not want. And so when you attempt to go in a reason and logic and go, but you're going to save, like, I mean, I think about one of my dear girlfriends, and she was at my house recently, and she's with a Coldwell banker that she's been with for 20 years. And she's like, I really need to run my business more like a business and, be focused on profit. And so we ran the numbers of what it would have been if she was at EXP versus the Coldwell banker, and she would have saved over $130,000 last year alone that she would have kept. Did she move to EXP yet? Nope. Nope. So in a reason and logic conversation about running a business like a business and looking at profits and how to be more effective, it is clearly not a logical conversation. You need to know that when you go into these conversations with people, that you're not necessarily going to be dealing with reason and logic. There's all the stuff that's going to be sitting underneath. And it's like the tip of the iceberg. You've all seen that where the tip of the iceberg sits on top and it's like the part that everyone can see. And then underneath the water is like all of this stuff, right? Well, until we start to go through that stuff and melt the different layers, there's not going to be any movement there. So that's something that happens over time. And here's what I want you to write down. He or she who is most certain wins. He or she who is most certain wins. And so the question that I want each of you to ask yourself is, does my level of certainty exceed anyone else's level of uncertainty that I may be speaking with? And if somebody else's uncertainty exceeds your certainty, then there is the gap and the work for you to do to get more clear and more certain. And that's going to be different for each person. So maybe it's maybe it's a belief gap that you have. Well, I haven't actually created an organization yet. I was listening to Brent Gove has his Inner Circle Mastermind that you can sign up for. It's $10,000 for the year, and it gets you in 2 calls a month and a few extra events throughout the course of the year. And I didn't go to the one in Scottsdale. However, I'm a part of the group. And there was Rob Flick did a brilliant piece in there. And he was talking about, he has 2 people and he was saying specifically he would go to realtor events and, looking to meet real estate agents. And if people weren't real estate agents, he wasn't talking to them about EXP. And then he realized like what a mistake that was because EXP is a vehicle for someone to change their life. And so he started looking at that differently into people that he really liked, that were hungry, that wanted something more better or different for their lives. And he has two people in his organization that have never sold a house, that only got licensed to build EXP organizations, that have in excess of 2,000 agents in their group. So, well, I'm not selling real estate, so how am I going to build an organization? Or I'm not a realtor, so how am I going to build an organization? That's a thought that produces a chemical reaction that then produces some kind of emotion that is going to create a stuck behavior versus a move forward behavior. Because in that same exact conversation, we've got live examples of people that haven't sold one home, got a license to build an organization, and have thousands of people in their organization producing a totally different outcome. Okay. Um, I'd like to hear from you guys, things going on. I get tired of my own voice. So anything that's stirred up for you or that is kind of bringing to the surface in this conversation, would love to get some shares. Go, Claire.
So when Glenn came to our rally, which was the craziest thing because I picked the venue and I had a late recruit and I got to go outside and the black car drove up and there was Glenn Sanford walking up the sidewalk with my recruit. And I'm like, hey, Andy Carter, meet Glenn Sanford. And he's like, oh, you have a really nice company here. Anyway, he stayed the whole time, but that wasn't what he said, but that was cool. And I never really met Glenn that close before, and it was crazy cool. But he said on the stage that we have to recruit ourselves, re-recruit ourselves every day. And that's what I try to do because, like I say, that EXP is a vast ocean and I'm a snorkel guide and I have to figure out where the good fish are so I can swim people over so they can see them. Otherwise, they get lost in the ocean, right? So I try to find cool stuff that's going on that's different so that I can get excited about it to tell people. So that's how I sort of re-recruit myself, and I listen to other people's EXP explains and go on calls like this.
I love that, Claire. Thank you for sharing. Who else? Don't be shy. There's no bad shares. Only
Debbie
the one.
has something in the notes.
Debbie has something in the notes. What part about, yeah, an emotion's a record of the past. So, when that chemical response happens in the form of an experience and an emotion that gets embedded in your body, that's why you can hear a song and you have emotion that comes up. There's something that's an experience of the past where that chemical reaction happened and imprinted related to that song, that you can hear that song over and over again and it brings up tears even though you're not in that moment. So any emotion that you're experiencing in some way, shape, or form is connected to a record of the past. Now you can have new ones, of course, you can create new ones. But quite often what you could, and that's where the power of creating a new experience in that old emotion becomes key. So for Kim and the gals that were at the retreat at my house over the weekend that are going to go do PSI and all that experiential training, you're going to have the opportunity to have do a bunch of exercises that is going to trigger emotions, which actually sit in the subconscious part of the mind, not the reason and logic. So if you go to like counseling or therapy and you're doing cognitive therapy, behavioral stuff, you're dealing with the part of the mind that is reason and logic, decision-making part of the mind. It functions like 7 to 9 functions per second, but that's not where beliefs and emotions sit. That sits in the subconscious part of the mind. It's the part of the mind where you can dream at night and feel like you wake up and it was like really happening. And it wasn't. It was all in that part of your mind. And yet all of those emotions have been triggered. So when you bring those to the surface and create a new experience while that emotion is there, you can create new neural pathways in the mind and body. It's actually the fastest way to do it versus, a repetition over what you think and tell yourself over a period of time. PSI Seminars is a Personal Success Institute. It's the work that I started back in 2006. And for those of you that knew the story of how Rick and I ended up on our first date, what we look back as our first date, it was me enrolling him into that class, April 28th of 2008. So it is incredible work, and it is work that not a lot of people do. However, for the people that do it, we personally enrolled over 300 between Rick and myself, over 300 friends, family, colleagues, and everyone comes out and says the same thing. It was It was the best investment in themselves that they've ever made. So it is not Tony Robbins. It is not like Tony Robbins at all. It's not about changing your state and jumping around and the energy and emotion of that. It's a very different work and powerful, because if you want to create, and for a lot of people, it's identifying areas that you're already really effective in, why, and owning those and utilizing them at the higher level. And then additionally, the blind spots that sit in there, the things that we can't see about ourselves, but that we know it's like, hey, when I say I want to go here and this is what I want to create, and I keep ending up over here, there's a reason why, because there's a misalignment between the reason and logic part of my mind, which is what I say that I want to create, and that subconscious part of the mind, which is the driver for behavior, where all beliefs and emotions sit. And those two things are not aligned. And so when they're not aligned, it's impossible to say, here's where I'm going and here's where you end up. It's always a here's where I'm going and then I end up over here, because this is the one that's actually driving the car. And until you reveal what those blind spots are that all of us have, it's going to continue to happen. And then once they're no longer blind spots and you know them, now you have tools and techniques and options to create something different moving forward. So yes, if anybody's going to go, Bay 200, BAY 200 is a promotion code that'll give you $200 off of the tuition of the first of the 3 courses. I don't get anything for that. However, I will get you at a totally different level in your life and in your business if you go do that work. So I would highly encourage anyone that hasn't done it to go do it. I believe it's the best investment you can possibly make in yourself. Okay. Anything else that anyone would like to share before we move on to some specifics? No? Okay. So what, this is going to require some participation now. What are the things that you're experiencing that are creating I don't know what to say, or I felt like what I could have said could have been so much more effective? Let's talk some real life scenarios so that we can talk through them. And if nobody has any, that means you're not talking to anyone. So this would be a really good place to start.
I'd love to ask. I did real estate in Las Vegas for a time, maybe 3 years. And my Keller Williams team leader at the time, Buck Hujob, amazing dude. He's now a commercial agent here in Las Vegas. And he's an amazing dude, does really great business. And he would be an absolutely perfect fit in EXP. He's a builder, he's intelligent, he's hardworking, he's a good dude. And I talked to him and I was like, yeah, I'm with EXP now. And he was like, oh, that's nice. And I could hear like this shift in his tone. And despite everything in me, my courage just like drained from my body. And I was like trying to have this conversation and share my story with him. He already knows a lot of my story. We're good friends. Um and I just, no matter how hard I tried to open the dialogue of, let me tell you about what I'm doing now, and can you share with me what you're doing now and how's that working out for you? I couldn't get over the hump of hey, I'm at EXP and let me tell you, because he would constantly very tactfully turn the conversation a different direction, and I couldn't stay focused.
This is a great one. I love this. Thank you for bringing it to the conversation. So the retreat we did over the weekend, we had a little fun demonstration over my kitchen sink. Shall I recreate it, Kim? Okay. Selena's like, oh my God, she's lost her mind. What are we doing? All right. And it's really important. It's really important. So this, what Buck is his name?
Yes.
Okay.
But well, he's Arab, so it's a lot longer than that. But yes, Buck.
Oh, I know the Arabs well. Okay. So this very full glass represents Buck, everything he's got going on in his life, his business, anything that he thinks about EXP, like what's going on with his health, his physical energy, Here's you with the very same thing, and you are excited to have a conversation with him about what you're doing and why, and attempt to engage him in that. And what you just described is, as you went to do that, it just deflected and kind of just ran out all over the place, and every attempt didn't really work. And there you go, like you're left like this, and he still has no container for anything that you wanted to share. Versus here he is still, and you come to the conversation differently, which is 100% in curiosity about him, what's going on in his business, what's going on in his life. You're not wanting to pour anything into him. You're wanting to get all of this stuff out of him. What's working, what's not working, what's happened since he was in the team leader position, what are things, his experience in commercial, what's going on with his family, and now there's space. Because what you're doing doesn't matter if he has no space to hear it, as it how it's going to relate to him. So that's visual number one. It's the benefits of working at home in your kitchen. And then the second thing is, when you bring up your story has nothing to do with EXP. And your story is actually about where you're at in your family, your life, your business, and being at a precipice with a need to do something very different. And so in that, you're connecting human to human, and it's not about EXP at all. It's now about being relational in that space. Second layer of that is, and he says, where are you at? What are you doing? And you say, I'm at EXP, and then you notice an energy change. The most effective way to handle that, in my experience, would be to say, Buck, I noticed your energy just shifted when I told you I was at EXP. What's that about?
Oh, well, I already know what that's about. He lost half his brokerage to EXP in 2006, 2005, 2006, somewhere in there.
So let's back up. We don't know that that's what it's about.
Well, okay, fair.
We never know what it's about for someone until we ask and they tell us.
Okay.
And so when you're in the, here is the, particularly for people that are in real estate and sales, like our job is to figure out what's going on with people and what's driving them, and put those pieces together, and then kind of be in front of them. And we forget to ask sometimes, because until you know exactly from him, words out of his mouth, why his energy shifted, or why he started having a different experience of him, there's not a place to have a conversation from. You're not able to meet him where he's at, because you don't know exactly where he's at based on the words coming out of his mouth. And in that, there's a really powerful dynamic that happens, because if you go from a place of, well, I know why that's happening, and you continue the conversation, what he's going to experience now is a push energy from you, and he's going to dodge and deflect. And the more you attempt to open it or find a way in, it's going to feel like more push, and he's going to attempt to dodge and deflect, versus if you just completely take it off the table as far as what you want to pour in or you want to share, and then to be 100% in the experience of him, like, hey, dude, we've been friends a long time. I noticed your energy just changed when I told you when I was with, mentioned him with EXP now. What's that about? Or why is that? And then you give him the opportunity to say it. So what happens a lot of times for people is, we're walking around, myself included, with things that we feel inside that are, the longer they stay unexpressed, the more steam they gather. Right? And then the expression of them lets it go and releases it of sorts, because it's now not holding the same relationship in the body. And sometimes, I'm sure I'm not the only one that's had this experience, is when that happens and we actually hear the words coming out of our mouth about what we've been containing or holding in. And as those words are coming out, it's like, gosh, the way I feel about that doesn't actually match the reality of the situation. Or that does seem kind of like not as big of a deal as I'm making it. And now I'm realizing that because I'm hearing those words come out of my mouth. Or, oh my goodness, that was like 9 years ago. And look at me still here with energy on it when life and business and so many things have moved forward and I haven't. And and so those personal awarenesses don't happen until the opportunity for personal expression happens. So if we can go back to like in this scenario being like you're having a conversation with a dude that you've been friends with, you know, that is in your life. This isn't a cold contact. It's somebody where there's a relationship there and step back from where you're at and be 100% where they're at. That now creates that space in the cup for there to be the possibility of a new conversation, of a different conversation where there may not be otherwise, right?
Hmm.
Great example.
Thank you, Casey.
You're welcome. Now, do you want to know how you can clean it up?
Sure. Yeah, 100%.
So here's
I'm
a
not
cleanup. Here's the cleanup conversation is, when when was the conversation with him? How long ago was it?
last week.
Last
So
week?
probably Thursday or Friday. Yeah.
Okay. And how'd you guys leave it?
Um, me getting on the road to drive to Las Vegas and him, I don't know, dropping off his kids or whatever he was doing, family stuff.
Okay. So at
He's
the
like, I
point,
gotta go, man. I'm busy, blah, 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 whatever. And I was like, okay, cool, dog.
okay. So here's a cleanup conversation is, reaching back out to him at some point this week and just to get him on the phone. If you're gonna do that via text or whatever, just say, hey man, I owe you an apology. Got a second to talk. And in that, say I've been thinking about our conversation, you know, ever since last week when we had it. Just wanted to acknowledge that due to the vision that I have and where I'm going, I might have kind of, uh, let me back up. Due to the excitement that I have about what I see as possible for me and my family, I feel like I might have energetically or otherwise pushed that on you. And so I want to reset and just say that I value our friendship, respect you, you know, who you are in the industry and everything that you've done. I noticed at the point in the conversation where it came up, you know, that I'm with EXP and that I'm excited about it, are that there was a definite, you know, shift in that conversation or in the energy of that conversation. And if you're open to it, I would love to at some point understand why that was. So, and you may get it, you may not, but the cleanup's important. And then that's a reset. So if we think about every single relationship is that we're managing the energy of a relationship through the conversations that we have or that we don't have. And every opportunity is a check-in for that energy. So I think of it like, is this a relationship for me? Like, I'll give you a really good example. I'm walking my dog this morning and I get this text from my mom. I'm going to read it to you. It says, "Good morning. I am at the laundromat washing Bubba, who's my dog, Bubba's blankets from the last time he was here." And then in parentheses, she says, "My least favorite place to be. Wanted to give you plenty of notice. Please, please, please make sure he has a bath before he comes this Friday." So, I mean, there's so many things that I could say in this moment and that I wanted to say. I'm like, was that passive or aggressive or passive aggressive? And I mean, like, there was a million things because of, you know, this is a relationship. I'm 50 years old. So I simply texted back one word and I said, yes. And that is, I'm sure, not what my mom was expecting because I have a snarky streak, which probably comes as a shock to everyone on this call. And then she wrote back, "Thank you ever so much," with a, you know, smiley face with hearts going on all around it. This is an example of managing the energy of the relationship. It is not up to the other person. Like, clearly my mom's management of her energy was to tell me how displeased she was and not happy about it, but she loves having the dog. So can I please, you know, la, 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 right? And I could very easily get hooked into that and be like, Mom, a simple would you make sure Bubba has a bath before he comes on Friday? Would have been fine. Or you could have sent the blankets home with me home with me to wash in my washing machine like you did last time. Or, I mean, there's a million different things ineffective that could have been that response. But what I'm thinking is, how do I want to manage the energy of the relationship that I have with my mom? I very much appreciate that she is going to be my dog sitter for the weekend. And is it going to be effective for me to go there, even though I could? So I'll text her back and say, something. So all of that energy management, I'm managing inside of myself and choosing the response of what's going to be most effective in this situation, regardless of what's going on. And this is when you think about attraction and recruiting and the conversations that we have, it's all energy management into those relationships. Has it been, did we miss an appointment? Did we show up late for an appointment? Have we acknowledged it? Was there follow-up that we said we were going to do and we didn't? And then we're following up and never acknowledged that, the ball was dropped. All of those things impact how the energy of the relationship gets managed. And we are relationship energy managers, period. So that takes a lot of self-awareness, personal self-awareness to regulate our own before we ever start going in and mixing with other people's. And it takes intentionality and being present and aware of all of that. And then the most important thing, which I know we talk about, here and there, which is the pause. The pause and I want to put this in, or I want to make sure I get this in, or let me see if I can get in here, and just having the pause be enough. Sometimes a pause can completely reset. I paused and didn't answer her for 45 minutes, even though she knows I'm very responsive via text. I'm like, pause, Casey, just pause. What I wanted to say is, I know based on how we grew up and the volunteer work she does, that while she's at the laundromat for an hour, she could be counting an hour of church time and like double the effectiveness of her time at the laundromat because there's people in front of her that she could talk to. That would have been so ineffective. So ineffective, right? But fun and completely ineffective. All right. Let's go with another scenario. What is something that someone has said where you're like, oh, where's the words, or where do I find the words, or I wish I could have done, didn't get the outcome I was looking for. What was that conversation?
I have
I'll
a
go,
guy.
Casey.
Sorry.
No, it's okay, Claire.
Go ahead. You were first.
Okay.
So good to see you.
So good to see you too. Hi, Kim. Hi, Debbie. Look, I can go through everybody. Sometimes I get on Zoom calls and it feels like Brady Bunch. Anyway, or Romper Room. For those who are old enough to remember and from the Bay Area. Anyway, so I find myself, some of you guys know I run one of Kristen Maysher's Skin of the Game calls. And so there's about anytime between 35 and 40 people on our calls. And every now and then I'll have a conversation with people about, their pain points. I hear a lot of their pain points consistently. And I find myself hesitant in naturally engaging them and taking the conversation to the next level. So for instance, there's someone who did just join my EXP organization. However, that was all her. That was zero me. It was more just me being present for her and her going, hey, I want to join you. And I feel like there gets to be a possibility of me being just a little bit more proactive to engage more instead of just waiting and being very passive about all of it. And I recognize that is something I do with that call. I have all of these different spaces where I'm naturally a leader in it and I'm not taking it to the next level. Does that make sense?
Yeah, you don't ask.
Yes.
No asking, no giddy.
Right.
So, well, if you were to guess, why are you not asking?
Honestly, when I heard you talking about Kim earlier, and I think you and I might have talked about this when I was at your house last time, that because I was in network marketing very deeply in the late 90s, early 2000s, I have had many of those same conversations that felt just icky. And just seeing that whole space, lived it so ingrainedly. So I do believe it's something that I'm very hesitant because energetically, that is where my body goes to that whole life that I had at that time.
Okay. So
Yep.
do you want to create a new track in the brain around it?
Absolutely. Yep.
So state what is every single time. And what that would look like is Katrina, there is a conversation that I've not even been having or opening up with you because of something that's just absolutely so silly where I'm making it about myself and not wanting to go through a, potential uncomfortable conversation. And yet I'm going to have the conversation with you anyways, just because what I want to talk to you about could dramatically impact your business, your future. Are you open to that conversation? So
Gotcha.
if you find some way to just state it, like, or it could be like this, Katrina, I almost didn't call you because I know you're doing great in your business and your life, and I would never want to be perceived in any other way than somebody who's here to support you with that. And
Oh, I love that, especially because when you just said that, there's one individual that popped in my mind who he had stated that he was kind of interested when I saw him here in person at Summit last October, and then um, doubled down on his current brokerage, investing in the actual building in the brokerage, in all kinds of technology at the office, their franchise office, and so I felt like that was through his activity, him saying, yeah, I've decided I don't want to go that route. And I just never asked the question. I just, based on his action, said, oh, okay, I get it, and left it alone. Never even opened the door to that conversation.
yeah. So another thing that you could say, or another way that you could say that for these people that are experiencing you in a leadership context is like if it was me being you, just reach out and say, hey, if Katrina, it's Casey. And I know that your experience of me is mostly like in this context of leadership and leading people and doing things like that. So you might be surprised to realize that I'm very human as well. And there's certain things that make me uncomfortable, even when they're really great things. One of which is the conversation I'm about to have with you.
Gotcha.
Right? I have not been having this conversation with you about what's possible for your business and your future just because of a bunch of stuff that has to do with me that's silly that we don't need to get into. But I realize that's pretty selfish. And so I'm going to put my own selfish stuff aside and ask you if you're open to a conversation about what taking your business or your future to the next level could look like based on some of the things that I have available to me that I can share with you.
Okay. And then the last part of that is I can think of 8 people off the top of my head that my hurdle to overcome is that they all talk about how happy they are with having their own office space to go to, and there are not Regis offices, that there are not actual office spaces that are easily accessible for them.
Yep.
And so that's part of the reason why I don't have the conversation.
Okay. So
Yep.
in the context of if somebody loves an office space, I would say something like this. Katrina, I know you mentioned this so often that you love having the office that you go, that you go to work. Is that still the case?
Okay. And assuming they say yes, because quite often they have.
So when they say yes, then the next question would be 20 years from now, 30 years from now, are you still going to be excited about going to that office? Or are you going to wish that you were set up in a way that you had options to be there a lot less, if not at all? Like,
Gotcha.
what's your exit strategy potentially? Do you even have one? So use the thing of whatever, like not to talk them out of not having an office, but use the thing to get them thinking differently, right?
Mm-hmm.
And open a door, just a different thought, a different possibility. And
Okay.
someone says they love something, I want to know why they love it. Because everybody's going to love something for a different reason. Somebody may say, oh, I love the office space because of the energy I feel when I go there. Someone else is going to say, oh, I just need separation between my home life and my work life. Someone else is going to say, oh, I love the office space because I see people when I go into the office. Someone else is going to say, oh, I love the office space because that's where I meet my clients. And it's the digging, regardless of what someone says on the surface, it's the digging deeper to really understand why they're saying the thing that they're saying on the surface, until you get to that deeper level of what that actually is, which is going to be very individual for each person. It's impossible to know where to take the conversation next until you've got a really clear understanding of that piece.
And I think that's where I hesitate, because my brain goes a million miles in front and answers those questions and then goes, oh, I'm clear that I'm assuming that they're going to say, oh, because I love the separation from my home and having an actual dedicated office space, or that I love the energy of being able to interact with all of those people in person as opposed to a Zoom call. And that I don't have a retort for that. I don't have anywhere to go with that, which is why I go, you know what? I'm just going to stop.
Yeah. And not everything needs a retort. Sometimes it's okay. I mean, somebody could say, I love going to the office because I get away from my husband.
I've heard that.
Right? Or I
Yes.
love going to the office because it's the one place I don't have to look at all the laundry that's piled up around my house. I mean,
Yep.
you know, and can everybody get their own office space and rent it if that's what they want and what's important to them? Yeah. So office space is
Right.
a barrier. So let's think about like what's the higher context of the conversation? Because the office space is not the issue. The issue
Mhm.
is what are they building for their future, right? And I'm asking this question more and more to people if they've read the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And if they haven't,
Mhm.
I'm inviting them to go read it. And then I am asking them the question, tell me once you read it, where you are in the cash flow quadrant.
Mm,
And anybody that's not
that's
with
a good one.
EXP is on the left-hand side of the quadrant. Everybody with EXP from day one is on the right-hand side of the quadrant. Left-hand side of the quadrant, you can sell, sell, sell anywhere. You can love your little office space. You can get your commission at whatever your splits, caps, and if you even have a cap, and fees are going to be. And never build anything for yourself. Or depending on where you're selling that real estate, you can be on the right-hand side of the quadrant where you're actually building something for your future and for your life every time you do those same exact behaviors and activities. So if it was possible to be on the right-hand side of the quadrant from day one and right now, if it's not your day one in real estate, like, is there any reason why you wouldn't want to be building something for yourself concurrent to selling the real estate you're going to sell anywhere?
Yep. Okay. Thank you. And oh, by the way, I didn't do PSI, but I did two other versions. I did Landmark years ago, like 2001, and I did another version here in the Bay Area called New Era, and I did go through all three phases. So when you mentioned that, I was like, you know what? I need to revisit all that from where I am now as to who I was then. So thank you for that.
That is
Yeah.
a great point. So with the PSI stuff, I've been 32 times to that initial weekend because you can go back for free wherever it's held for the rest of your life. And why I would do that over and over and over again is because you take the stuff, go apply it, create a different set of results, now have a totally different perspective and lens that I'm looking through, go back, do the same exact activities and exercise through that lens, create a whole another layer of awareness, go back out into my life, work on those things with that new level of awareness, with those tools and skills, come back to it again and again and again and again. And that's how you create mastery in something. I was having a conversation with someone, my trainer actually yesterday, and I said, yeah, do you realize back in 2006, I was part of a 90-day goal setting program where I paid $5 every time I said the word can't, $2 every time I said the word but, and $2 every time I said the word try for 90 days to change my language and behavior patterns. And he's like, that's ridiculous. I'm like, not really, because can't is a lie and it gives your power away to something else and makes you a victim. And the truth is, I choose not to. So just say you choose not to, because you're always choosing to do something else when you say you can't. Like, so you're choosing to do this versus that. So that word goes away. And then I want to, but, and then comes some story about why not. Totally disempowering. I'm going to try. Well, not really. Kim was at our house over the weekend. We had somebody here that was so excited about the word try. And it's like, just say no. Just say no. Say no, or I'm committed to finding a solution so that I can say yes. Don't say try. Those like words have power, right? And we don't realize how much power we give away or influence we give away in the words that we're choosing to use or not use. And it's not until there's some pain involved, like at that time, finances were horribly tight and a lot of pressure around them. So I created awareness very quickly because I had an entire team that was holding me accountable to when I would use those words because I wasn't even aware that I was using them in my language. And then that awareness of like, oh my goodness. And then the removal of changes everything, right? So yes, definitely re-audit.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, who else? Another scenario. What to say when you don't know what to say.
So I've let a lot of conversations drop because I just went through another hip surgery. So probably for the week before, I just stopped making those phone calls and conversations because well, I'm going to be out of pocket, and so how do I restart those? I mean, I mean, do I just point blank say, hey, I was out of pocket, here's why? Yeah. And I could have done it better, and I should have been more proactive about it. But now I'm like, oh, am I going to start over?
Yeah, so let's look at your language. Could have and should have
Yeah.
is language of persecuting yourself for a decision that you made or didn't make. That's not going to be the most effective at all to help you move forward.
Yeah.
So woulda, coulda, shoulda, I would invite you to like can that language
Okay.
and just say, I went in for like to yourself, I went in for hip surgery. As a result of that, I completely went out of pocket and did not proactively communicate that to people that I had in progress. So now what? Okay, now we're coming from a neutral place. You stating what is, you've got yourself in a neutral place versus now you're going to be reaching out in a coulda, woulda, shoulda mindset. And so now you can reach out from a neutral space and say, Casey, it may have seemed like I dropped off the planet because I did. I had hip surgery and I'm back. And you're one of the first people that I've been thinking about and wanted to reconnect with. Can we pick up where we left off?
Cool. Yep. Okay. That's
So
simple.
yeah,
I don't have to make excuses. I mean,
No.
just it is what it is, right?
state what is, re-engage. So think about this. This is really important learning, and I'm so glad you shared it. Think about all of the energy that you have already expended in the conversation that you've been having in your mind, which is the coulda, woulda, shoulda conversation. And that has created that chemical reaction, which has brought up the emotion, which has created the behavior of still not engaging.
Yeah.
And so that's the one that you've been strengthening versus now we just go, okay, I take ownership for, and responsibility, state what is, had a hip surgery, didn't proactively communicate in advance. And now it's time to re-engage, doing that from a neutral place, going to state what is and re-engage. And the like no energy that takes in the mind and body. Thank you for that example.
Seems so simple when you say it.
Our job as human beings is to make things way more complicated so that we can stay in the little whirlpool of stuckness and then go, oh, I'm in the whirlpool of stuckness. It's human nature, right? Okay, who else? We got time for one more. Okay. Go, Debbie.
There's a gentleman who is going to be moving out of state, and he's interviewed some brokerages where he's moving to, and him and I have also had conversations about EXP, and he really does think that EXP is a great model, but he continues to want to explore other options. He's on my accountability calls. We see each other locally here all the time. I know my desire is to have him make a decision. I want to respect his right to explore all of his options.
Yeah. So what's the guy's name? Just first name. Dave. So reaching out to Dave could look like, Dave, I've been thinking about you a lot lately and the conversations that we've had, and I've enjoyed the conversations that we've had. And one of the things that you've mentioned repeatedly in the conversations that we have had is that you think, EXP is a great option for you based on what you want for your business and your life moving forward. And yet you're still in the space of, gathering information and wanting to research other options, which says to me that you're not 100% clear on what the value and impact is here, or else you'd already be here. If you're open to it, I would really love to understand what those gaps are. Would you be willing to share them with me?
Great.
Or something like that. That was a lot of words, right?
And I was trying to write every single one of them.
Fortunately, it's recorded. But this is kind of the idea. When somebody's not already here, there's a reason why they're not already here. And that just means there's a piece that they haven't yet connected for themselves. And someone else is going to come in with that piece if we don't know what it is. eventually and positioned to it, whether it's another agent with EXP or another brokerage potentially, right? And so when someone's like, how is it you're not already with us? And then leave it on them to share why not. That will reveal, the gaps. And then you have a place to have a conversation from.
Great. And him and I are really great friends, so I can have a very raw, candid conversation with him too.
Yeah. Like, Dave, I wasn't thinking about you in the shower. It's not weird like that. But I was thinking about you while I was having my coffee this morning.
That would make his day. Like he's
I digress. I'm being silly, obviously. Depends on your relationship with someone, right? Maybe
Right.
it's the tension. Dave, I was about to pour my coffee. And I'm like, Dave.
And
Oh,
then Dave, I'm so glad you thought of me first thing in the morning. I'm the first thing on your mind. That's so flattering.
yeah, there you go. I was thinking about you first thing this morning. You could leave it at that. And now you probably really have his attention.
Right.
Okay, so let's put a button on our call today in our last 60 seconds together. What to say when you don't know what to say is number one, check in with yourself. Thoughts create chemical responses in the body, which trigger emotions that are a record of the past that then dictate our actions that we're going to go take or not take, which over time determines our behavior. So the big question is, what are the thoughts for me to think that I may not currently be thinking that are going to create a different chemical reaction with a different response and then a behavior, an action or a behavior that's going to be aligned with where I want to go. Back to the what to say when you talk to yourself. Everything starts from recruiting or re-recruiting ourselves. Then secondarily, realizing that when we're in conversations with other people, don't guess what's going on for them. Ask, let them tell you, and get really clear down to the most microscopic detail that you can so that you can really have a full understanding of them. Let them empty their cup before you attempt to put something in their cup. Nobody can receive from a full cup. And then lastly, the commitment to continue to do the work on ourselves of getting better by increasing our levels of awareness and doing the activities that are going to be effective to keep moving ourselves forward, and then being an example so that other people can see that, follow us. And then a quick way to always reset energetically, get to a place of neutral based on whatever that language is, and then move forward in a simple yet direct way that is disarming. Sometimes that requires an apology call or an acknowledgement call, depending on what the situation is, and have the courage to do that. So thank you, each and every one of you, for being on the call today. Thank you for being willing to share and what you contributed. Upwards and Onwards going to have amazing Free Friday coaching call this week with Joseph Trujillo, 9 a.m. Friday, www.freefridaycoachingcall.com. That's 9 a.m. Pacific. And the promotion is already in the Empire Builders Pro Facebook group. A video promotion will be coming out later today because he promised he's getting it to us. All right. Make it a great day, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.